The Pittsburgh Steelers, after the 2021 season, ran into a crossroads. They lost Big Ben Roethlisberger, who had been with the team for over a decade and had been a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback. So what do you even do as a team looking to move on from a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback when every single backup on the roster already isn't trained to take over and definitely doesn't have the promise to be your future NFL starter, especially with the unfortunate passing of Dwayne Haskins? So with such a crossroads in mind, Mike Tomlin and the Steelers drafted Kenny Pickett, the hometown hero from Pitt University, and thus he might be their franchise face for the next 10 years, or he could turn into a bust. We don't know. As the only first-round quarterback, he does have a lot of pressure on him, not only to be able to beat out Mitch Trubisky for a starting role, but also just to become a true franchise starter, since he was given a lot more confidence than any other quarterback in this draft. And to be fair, he is the most pro-ready. So let's look at the film and see just what we can expect from a first year out of Kenny Pickett, and we'll see what we can't expect out of him from a first year at Kenny Pickett, and can he even beat out Mitch Trubisky to see a lot of starting time as a Steelers quarterback and be able to maybe even become the franchise face for the next decade plus. Let's get into it. What's up, guys? I'm Tyler Coker, and I'm your host for today's episode of Today with Tyler. I hope you enjoy. First, let's look at the good in his game, since he definitely isn't a bad quarterback. I'll begin with his processing, since he can play as a true passer that doesn't have to rely on elusive athleticism to elevate his game. Pickett understands his route concepts and when his receivers will break on their routes, which allows him to throw with anticipation, a crucial aspect to an NFL QB's game. Pitt also let him run a professional enough offense for his tape to show examples of Pickett working through reads with his eyes before progressing down to a flat, sometimes working through even 4 reads on the same play. Added to his knowledge of his plays is his understanding of leverage, and he shows acute awareness of where a ball needs to be thrown in order to hit the soft spots in coverage and keep the ball away from defenders. This awareness allows him to make tight window throws and play as if his arm is even stronger than it is. That being said, Pickett still understands that he can't always force a play, and he doesn't suffer from the Carson Wentz syndrome of wanting to play hero ball. Added to his executional traits is a unique mobility, one that would relate to the style of a lesser quality Russell Wilson, in that he can buy time when the structure of the play falls apart to throw. Pickett's accuracy doesn't even falter when he's on the run, which adds a huge another level to his play and opens the playbook dramatically. He's able to utilize that mobility due to his eyes staying down on the field for the most part, instead of dropping them as I've explained in pretty much every QB1 that I've done so far. He also can use his legs to pick up yards, and while he doesn't always make the best read, he often scrambles to keep behind the line while waiting for coverage to fall apart, which happened often when he was playing at Pitt this last year. Looking at Kenny Pickett, it's easy to call him one of the most NFL-ready quarterbacks in the draft with those executional skills, and he definitely won't struggle to get to professional level. That said, let's look at just how much success he will actually have at that level. First, his read isn't always perfect, which is a big reason why no other QB-needy team reached for him before pick 20, like how he had early struggles against Clemson. His arm, while strong and definitely with big-time playability, also isn't as elite as someone would want from the first quarterback off the board, which was probably another reason he was so readily available at 20 for the Steelers. Pickett also has a very bad habit to fade away from his throws, which was also noted by PFF. Not only does he do it on deep passes and throws over the top, which is already extremely risky, especially against NFL-level secondaries and safeties, but he also has faded on tight window accuracy throws that are really scary to watch. Yes, in this play the result was a completion, but no quarterback, especially one as limited as Kenny Pickett, can make a throw that time every single time against world-class athletes in the NFL. Speaking of unsustainability, Pickett's playstyle of scrambling will certainly falter in the NFL, as does with any quarterback, with more athletic pass rushers, and his ball security is sketchy at best. Though he definitely didn't have a fumbling problem in college, it's just something you notice that he does tend to only keep one hand on the ball. But perhaps the most important drawback to Kenny Pickett is the whole question of his ceiling. Yes, Pickett is, I'd say, the most NFL-ready quarterback and won't struggle to work in the Steelers' system. But can he elevate the Steelers team? Or will he rely on the new playmakers like rookies George Pickens and Calvin Austin III to make that offense actually powerful? There are a few concerns, minus the lack of thrilling talent jumping off the film, that I have and that I've also heard from other people. First, Pickett is a one-year wonder, and people do use that as a knock on him, but there's no certainty that he can bring the level of skill that he had at Pitt in his final year to the NFL. While I personally think he will, since his film isn't littered with miracles or anything ridiculous, it's just good play, the concern is valid, especially since Pickett was also a fifth-year senior that year at Pitt, and so he had an extra year over his opponents, and it was still just then his last dance year. Another concern, one that I actually share, is that he had just one big massive jump in effectiveness his last offseason, and that's the Kenny Pickett we're looking at now. Assuming that he keeps that level of play, Pickett still wasn't really considered by QB1 by most people, and wasn't ever considered top 10 talent, and no quarterback was really. He certainly has a relatively high floor, but his ceiling is most likely limited since he already saw a massive boost in play once. Rarely, if ever, do we see a quarterback take a second massive jump in their career. So the Kenny Pickett we see now is probably the Kenny Pickett we're going to see for his entire NFL career. And if I were a Steeler fan, that would be kind of terrifying. Yeah, he might be able to take the starting role immediately and probably will be able to beat out Mitch Trubisky. But once again, how much can he really do in that role? The downsides to Kenny Pickett, since his play isn't bad, and he isn't a bad quarterback, he just simply isn't great. And he doesn't have the crazy talent we see many first-round quarterbacks to have. I do think he will be a good quarterback, but I do worry that he won't develop at all, or at least not to be someone elite. And that's typically what you want when you're drafting in the most important position in the entire NFL. Kenny Pickett definitely isn't a bad quarterback, and I don't know if there's that many people who are going to say he is. The only issue lies in how good he can get. Yes, he's okay and is probably the most plug-and-play ready, and yeah, he might be able to beat out Mitch Trubisky for a starting role in year one in training camp, but realistically, what can the Steelers expect to do with him, or is he just going to work as a bridge? That's what we're going to have to see. That's what's going to be important for the Steelers this offseason to figure out just what Kenny Pickett can and cannot be. And it's going to be important that they surround him with real playmakers, and they did a pretty good job doing that with people like Calvin Austin out of Memphis and George Pickens out of Georgia. So with that many good skill players around him, he'll be able to be thrust into a good position. And yeah, his O-line may not be great, but as we've seen in this film, he is a little bit mobile enough to get away from that. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy, and let's look forward to seeing what Pittsburgh's going to do with Kenny Pickett this season.